You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Cyrine Nehme. Was that
Yes.
right? It's hard because since it's from a different language. It's that like it's a more of a it seems like for us it would be like kind of like it would be a hyphened letter, but it would be like if you're using more of like a nasal kind of feature when you speak.
Yeah, but you did it very well. It was so sweet and so soft because Na'me is a gift from heavens, and you pronounce it as Na'me. And because you just change a little bit of the pronunciation, it is the meaning of how you pronounce it is very soft. And both of them, I like them.
Well, America, we like to do things the wrong way, I feel like some of the times, especially every time I get in a conversation with someone from another country, they're telling me, oh, you drive on the wrong side of the road. I'm like, look, man, this is how I know how to drive.
Yeah, but America, when I love it because it's out of the blank, and this is the way you solve things when you think out of the box. So America might be right sometimes.
Plug in the show. I like it. Well,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
Well, myself is not important. What I do is I'm so lucky and I feel blessed because I do professionally. My profession is my passion, and my passion is my profession. I am an astrophysicist. So I study the skies, the heavens, cosmos, and I study the formations of stars, exoplanets, extraterrestrial life, and explosions of supernovae.
Don't you think that's a lot to keep track of too? I mean, there's so much about space that we do not understand. How did you get started on astrophysics?
It's a very good question, my friend. Well, several years ago, several decades ago, when I was a young child, I was 8 years old, and Lebanon was on fire. And here we got a friend of my father, and he said, well, let us go to the mountains and observe the sky with a small telescope. And I was 8 years old, and I'm so friend with my father. I'm the first child in the family, and I always thought that there's no difference between men and girls, in the Middle East. So I went with them, with the guys, to the mountains, and I observed Saturn. And it was a revelation because you see this small thing with the rings free in the big universe, and I wanted to be as free as Saturn. This is how I wanted to be an astrophysicist, for freedom.
I feel like throughout history, mankind has been obsessed with just looking up at the stars. I mean, how many
Mm-hmm.
times do people look up at the stars and just
Mm.
they find peace, they find something deeper meaning? I mean, a lot of us use like we talk about our horoscopes, our zodiac signs, whether you're a Pisces
Mm.
or a Capricorn or a Sagittarius. But it was always fascinating to me as a child because I went on a lot of camping trips with my father, and I would always look up at the sky at night and around the bonfire when there's no other lights around besides this fire in front of you. And when you get to truly look up and see how blue and all the little shiny white lights just up there in the sky, it brought peace. It brought serenity. I felt like, and a lot of the time, especially if you were having a rough day or something, if you just laying back in a nice little lawn chair or something and just looking up at the stars and just wondering like, what else is out there? That was always a fascination for me.
Exactly, and this is why since the beginning, when the human Homo sapiens stood up on his feet, he just looked at the sky, and you know what he saw? The first thing at night, he saw the moon, and he was so scared. And this is why we had this legend on the moon. And it was like the milk, and then the daughter of the earth, or the daughter of the sun. And then they started to understand, when we got to have the consciousness, they wanted, the human being started to wanted to understand from why we have all that. And it was fascinating, because you are saying, and I'm noting what you're saying, because really I listened to like 10 of your Out of the Blank podcast today, and
That's too
I
much.
really,
That's too much of me for anybody. Trust me. Oh my goodness.
yeah, I think that I got addicted to you, and I really like it. And you pronounced two things about light and horoscope. I will start about light. So at the beginning, like 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, we didn't have artificial light, light pollution, and we were able to observe the skies and to see the motion of the stars and the wanderers, the planets. So they were just wanted to understand from where does it come from. But now we have a problem, my friend. Now in the mountains, even at 3,000, we have artificial light that we are not able even to observe. So peace, we are going to find it elsewhere, not in the stars.
Yeah, this is a problem though, because pollution
Yeah.
is, a lot of people are not considering, like, we look at all the things like, oh, plants are dying, the rainforest, all these types of things. You really want to see pollution, walk outside at night and notice how you barely see any stars anymore.
Yes.
Every time, like my mom or someone in my family would be like, look, it's a star. I'm like, that's a satellite. She's like, how do you know? I'm like, because it's blinking. Stars don't blink. They remain constant. And this is upsetting because so many people want to take pictures of the moon. So many people want to go on these beautiful rides. I mean, the other day I just looked up at the sky and the moon was orange. That's unexplainable for me. I have no clue how it got that way, but it was the biggest and brightest thing I have seen, where it was lighting up this creek in front of me. And it was one of the most beautiful moments I couldn't even describe.
Isn't it beautiful?
There's so much about space and so much about the stars and things that we do not understand. I'm a big, like, yeah, space travel, that's cool and all, but I really want to kind of focus on Earth a little bit too. I really want to focus on people. But if you truly take in a lot of the information that you can receive from being outside or something, especially on like a nice, like maybe it's midnight or something, and you just are sitting outside enjoying every lasting moment. But looking up at the stars, like, there used to be so many more stars, it seemed like, when I was a kid. And everybody always brings up the point, oh, those stars you're seeing up there, they're long gone. They're dead stars. They're whatever. The light's just still taking so long to travel to us. I'm like, but now we're not even seeing those dead stars anymore, because the light's not able to penetrate through our ozone layer or whatever the hell that is creating from all our pollution.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm messing any of this up, please correct me, because like I said, I'm here to also learn a little bit too.
No, my friend, there's no messing in any question. And I really laughed, because I hear it every day. And yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I'm so happy that, what is wonderful was what you said with one of your Out of the Blank podcast. The mission that you are, kind of mission between brackets, is that you want the people to speak with others, from the earth. And this is why I'm laughing, because my profession is an astrophysicist, and you are not an astrophysicist, and we have the same anxiety about the earth. And this is why I'm laughing. And you said that in one of your podcasts, that you wanted people to be connected, to talk to each other, to talk to strangers, and this is why I believe that the earth is just one dot in the sky. We are just a small village. We are really nothing, and we are everything. This is why I was laughing.
It seems like there's so many people out there that only really think about these types of things when they start going into alien speak or whatever that goes on. And I always bring up this one thought. we can't think we're the only ones here in this universe. We can't think
No,
that we're out of
no.
all these galaxies, out of all these. I mean, if you really, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey.
Oh yeah, I talked about it on the TVs because I am a researcher, a professor, and I do a lot of outreach on TVs. Yeah,
That movie messed me up for a good couple weeks after I watched it. I was
you're
like,
right.
Matthew McConaughey is stuck on another planet somewhere, and every hour he spends there is 7 years here. And like people are trying to calm me down. I'm like, look, we have to get him back. I can't go a day without all right, all right, all right. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the matter of all these different galaxies, all these different things, where I might have had an influence of just with camping and looking up at the stars, and then I remember my dad bought a telescope, and it was I guess strange for a lot of my neighbors to see a 7-year-old kid or 6-year-old
Mm-hmm.
kid outside
Mm-hmm.
on basically on their front porch just staring up at the stars, because they don't
Mm-hmm.
they don't they don't truly take hold of those moments, especially something that seems so simple and so kind of useless is actually one of the most beneficial things, just when it comes to understanding and trying to find more of what I would call belief in the world. It seems like
Mm-hmm.
we feel like we're at the center and we're truly not. I mean, I've always kind of
Mm-hmm.
found my fascination and more research when it came down to it came from when I found out that pirates and all these types of sea travelers back in the day, all these English travelers and everything, they used the stars to navigate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
such as
Man, in one sentence, I'm writing notes. I cannot handle that. I need like 5 hours to answer all what you're saying. You're such a really so rich. Anyway, can I start?
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm all over the place.
Yeah, and I like it. So let me just for your listener, for your groupie and fans, for the moon, red moon, and you told me that you saw the last night. You can see it every month, I think, every month and a half, or sometimes twice a month. The red moon. Actually, the atmosphere plays a role in the color of the light. All right. Do you know the prism? You know, if we have a prism, the when we divide the color of the light, white light, into several colors.
Yeah,
Do you know?
like the Pink Floyd of Dark Side of the Moon album cover.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like my students, when they are rebellion, the revolutionary, they put the Pink Floyd. Yes. So Newton, here comes Newton, Sir Isaac Newton, and he studied the prism light. And it appears that the atmosphere particle that they are in the atmosphere, and not just the ozone. The ozone are oxygen, oxygen, oxygen. They are making love together. They are forming the O3 molecule, okay? But the atmosphere is made of nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, a little bit of carbon. So it,
Wait,
yeah,
with Newton though, I do have to say, now I from a little bit of kind of my studies through school, now
yeah.
astronomy is one of the oldest science forms, but when it
No, prostitution is before.
okay, but when it comes to theoretical
Yeah,
astrophysics, that
yeah.
began with Isaac Newton, because before we were kind of describing all the kind of astronomers were using like all the movements in space and motions as heavenly bodies, not really mathematical complexes. He kind of
Not exactly, not exactly.
okay.
Not exactly. Sorry to tell you, but let me just finish the reflection of the short wavelengths for the red color, and I will tell you about Isaac Newton.
Okay, cool.
The orange and red light are longer wavelengths. They tend to pass through the atmosphere. But the blue, the colors, everything that is above the blue are just reflected and scattered. This is why when the moon is a little bit lower in the atmosphere and we have a big atmosphere layer, so a lot of particle of atmosphere, the blue will not, everything that is up the blue will not pass. And this is why we just see the red and the yellow color.
Oh,
Okay, now
so
I
that's
will
why,
answer.
wait, that's why they call it Red Moon Rising, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure I'm making sure I'm getting all this information.
It's okay. I'm here for that. You can call me anytime. And the second thing is for Sir Isaac Newton. The rise of astronomy actually started with Galileo Galilei. Why I'm saying this? It is because we started, in my humble opinion, we started to observe with a telescope. We magnified the light of the sky. The stars, they thought about, like before the 16th and the 15th century, you know, the church used to think, the index used to think that the stars are here just to enlighten the human and we are the center of the universe.
Yeah, and then Galileo tried to expose that, and they put him on house arrest, where he ended up dying. I always said the one thing.
No, permita. No, por favor, no. Galileo Galilei sold his soul to the index. No, this is a very common error worldwide committed. Let me tell you why. Because he didn't have the balls to have the problem with the index. He told them, after all, oh, yeah, we are the center of the universe. The sun is rotating around the earth, but let me work. And they let him work. They gave him money. They put him in a very good castle. And then when he died, before dying, he published his book, what was called De Revolutionis, something that it's rotating, revolution around the sun. So no, he sold his alma, but the one who was killed and who was burned was Giordano Bruno. Giordano Bruno was an Italian astrophysicist, and he was a priest in the Catholic Church. And he said that he really believes that the Earth is rotating around the sun, and there are several extraterrestrial planets rotating around other suns, and he was killed, burned. So Galileo, he said that, like you wish, as you wish, you want the center? Okay, but let me work. Voila.
I've said a few times in the podcast, if there was one thing I could pull out of the archive, the Vatican archives, was the 1605 trials of Galileo. Mostly because throughout what I've been taught through history and stuff was that the church didn't like what Galileo was doing. So they put him on house arrest, only because he was, well, church is just too powerful when it comes to, you're basically everything that they've been preaching and telling all these people. He was trying to show them that wasn't the truth, that we weren't just the
exactly,
everything didn't revolve around us. I thought that was always fascinating.
Yeah. So let me get back to you for something that you said when you spoke about your sister, your family, your mother, and when you used to go outside in the mountains or whatever, and you used to see more stars than now. It is correct, my dear friend. Robi, the 20 years, 30 years back, the civilization and the industry are killing the night light. And it's not just killing the observation of the stars. It's not that the stars are dying, because at the scale of our life, which is, let us suppose, 100 years, we are nothing in the scale of the age of a star. Can be like 20 million, 10 million of years. But what is happening is that the pollution, the light pollution, and the light pollution are really influencing the nature. Some bees, some, those how we call them in English? Those small, like mosquitoes, that they have the light in their in their head. Then they are
they're called lightning bugs.
Yeah, they are not. They are disappearing, because there's light everywhere, even at midnight nowadays. So yes, stars can die. Yes, light can happen and can arrive from things that they are dying, but not in our scale of life scale.
That explains why I never see lightning bugs anymore. I felt like when I was a little kid, I was always running outside and get hit with like a giant group of them. I'd run right through it like,
absolutely.
Oh, man.
Absolutely.
That people are going to miss out on what it's like to catch lightning bugs.
Oh, imagine. Yeah.
This is crazy, because like the easiest way to explain what's happening with our stars and how we're not being able to see them, it's like if you're cooking eggs on a stove and your house starts getting all smoky, and instead of opening up a window to clear it out, you just sit there and let it all fill up the house. Eventually, you're not going to be able to see in front of your face.
Exactly. And you're just, waving your hand. Yes, I will see. Yes, I will see. And praying.
Now, when it comes to a little bit of Sir Isaac Newton, for instance, so
Yes.
now was his just being able to use more of like a physical basis to astronomy or
Well,
astrophysics, kind of
mm,
teaching
mm,
us?
yeah. Well, Sir Isaac Newton is really, I love this guy. For me, he is really very important in physics, and not just in physics. You know, Isaac Newton didn't just do the force is equal to the mass times the acceleration. They think that Isaac Newton had this apple on his head, which is wrong. Um, Isaac Newton also studied the optics. When Galileo Galilei did the first telescope, and he was not the first one to use the lenses. In Holland, they used the lenses but for the navigation in the sea. But Galileo Galilei had the idea to just take this telescope and turn it on the sky, not on the sea to see the ships, the pirates, the enemies. And Isaac Newton, he said that, okay, maybe I can develop this, not just small telescope, I can use other lenses and mirrors. So he did something very extraordinary, Isaac Newton. He did in the gravitational, mechanical, and optics. So if we are able now to send satellites around the Earth, it's because of Isaac Newton. If we are able to develop telescope, what we call them the reflector, reflect light, it's because of the Sir Isaac Newton. I love this man.
I know I think he was the one that taught me that an object in motion stays in motion unless stopped by an outside force, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to astrophysics, like with
Yeah.
all this information, everything this, now you're talking to a person who failed math basically like so many times you can't even count them.
How can you?
It's something when you start adding letters and numbers together, there becomes a problem with my brain. So with all this immense amount of education you probably have to even get into astrophysics, what like how did you even, I know we talked about like as a child and all these things, but even with that type of education, did you ever find it deterring from wanting to learn this just because it seemed like there was way too much to soak in for one person?
Listen, I think that, can I say everything I want?
Yeah, go.
Okay. Um, I think that the perfection is mathematics because it's not created, not always existed, and very logic and simple, common sense. And mathematics, as it is so abstract, will talk to common people with physics. Physics, you can imagine it as a theater. It can play characters. So, and everything else in the human on earth are details. Nothing important than mathematics and physics. And several times I think that God speaks with us with mathematics and physics. So no one, I cannot understand that someone can fail math. What I can understand is that someone had a bad teacher of math and physics because you are breathing math. You are talking to me, you are having your logic, and this is math. You can open your computer, this is math. Physics, you're breathing, you're talking, this is vibrational heat and waves. You're moving, this is mechanical. If you are angry, this is tension, pressure, heat. So I don't understand how we can fail this and we cannot understand it. So this is,
When it comes, I believe, like, as much as I want to agree with you saying it's my teacher's fault, I do want to take fault of my own because I believe my passions lied somewhere else. It seems like I know I've had probably a really bad math teacher at times when it comes to geometry. I had someone that did not speak very good English. Um, no offense to her, I understood it was hard to find patience with me because I get so easily sidetracked with things. So it's hard to get my attention. But
Yeah.
as a kid, I was all over the place, mostly because at the very beginning, the education system didn't really give me a true chance. Mostly
Uh-huh.
because with ADHD, where we're seeing it
Uh-huh.
be a little bit more known now and a little bit better ideas and ways to kind of deal with it are being fixed, such as not giving a kid a pill. Back
Mm.
then, when I was going through school, that was the easiest solution, or sending them out of class, where I missed a lot of the fundamental education that I should have been receiving. I had to pursue
Mhm.
a lot of it on my own. And when I actually committed to education and found that I was soaking in more of it was when I decided to go to college, and I was doing it
Mm.
because I
Mm.
was basically paying to go.
Mm. Mm.
Um,
Mm. 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 I totally agree.
when
And
it,
this is a problem, if I may say.
yeah,
Sorry, this is very important for me what you're saying, because the educational system everywhere. I lived in California, I went to New York, I lived in Belgium, I lived in Germany, I lived a lot in France. So I lived like more than half my life in France. And the educational system oblige you to know by heart things and to be graded of your short memory, and this is not how you build something, this is not how you build your character. And 80% of people are not made to fit with the academic system. So and this is that what they are not understanding. There is a word in French that I really love it, which is the ludic education, means that the subtle education. So instead of learning by heart the equations, do the experiments in front of them, and they will understand the relation between the weight and the gravity, the light and the prism.
yeah, I definitely soaked in way more information when it was a hands-on activity that we were doing rather than
Absolutely.
writing a bunch of numbers. I had no idea what they meant
Yes,
on a board. Um,
absolutely.
I definitely think there's different types of learning processes, such as people that need to be worked on one-on-one, such as things as need to be more hands-on, such as like for a lot of kids like me that aren't
Mm.
really fit this template of a 9 to 5 lifestyle, people that tend to find another job that goes in a different route, whether it's creativity as being an artist or whether it's a musician or whether all these things, they're amazing. But it feels like in our school system, I feels like everywhere is obviously there to teach the basic fundamentals, but it's not ever focusing on what makes somebody truly passionate and have that drive to pursue something. If someone would have came to me and decide, hey, you want to study the stars, you want to do these, and then gave me what classes I was going to need to get that, I might have soaked in a hell of a lot more information than them just giving me basic things and then forgetting about me.
Exactly, and mind you that astrophysics and physics, math, without creativity and art, you cannot live. Uh, 99% of the astrophysicists, the good astrophysicists I know, are also artists, or they play piano, or they paint, or they do pottery, or they write poems, or they love to do theater, because the universe, Roby, the universe is really our first creator and our how we say it, mascot, means that
It's our home.
yeah, and he will give us the art, the creativity. You cannot do physics and astrophysics without any creativity. You will die if you're just applying equations. The universe is so rich that, let me give you an example, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if you are, for example, studying a new supernovae, supernovae is when a star will die and will explode, okay?
Yeah, they believe the sun's gonna hit a supernova, and a lot of people are freaking out about
No,
that, yeah.
no. The sun is a small, tiny star. Now, we are not that exceptional, and it will not end up by a supernova. A supernova will be done if we are a really big, heavy star. Then we'll end up by a supernova. The sun will be a red giant, and it will be a white dwarf. White dwarf means that it's a small, very dense star that will be more, lighter than the sun. but smaller in denser, but smaller in volume and radius. So imagine that we're studying a new supernova. It exploded, but it's a fucking new explosion thing, you know? We don't know the colors, the dust, the elements. We need to have creativity. Without every human being that is not creative, that is not artist, cannot do anything. We're just dead. So this is how we create theorems and the theory. We observe. If it's not correct, we correct the theory.
Well, now,
Yeah.
when it comes to the Big Bang, people try
Mm-hmm.
and relate it, correlating into God. How would you explain, like, do you believe that it was a God's creation, or do you have the idea of a more scientific route about it?
Well, I had the bet between me and myself when God will arrive with the Big Bang, and after what minute, how many minutes, and we are like, how many minutes? We'll be like, what, 20 minutes? Well, in my scientific life and as an astrophysicist, when I start to study the exoplanets and extraterrestrial life and the formation of the first molecule on the dust, of course, the Big Bang and God were here. But let me tell you, the Big Bang theory is not just a theory. It was proven, right?
It's a great TV
It was
show.
proven.
It's a great TV show.
Oh yes, the series. You say, yeah. You know, I have the periodic element of Mendeleev, hydrogen, helium, lithium, like a mug, and you know. Anyway, so but the Big Bang does not. The mission of the Big Bang is to explain the Big Bang theory. Is to explain what happened after the expansion, after the Planck's time, 10 to the power minus 35 seconds. Okay, so it does not have any mission to explain why did it happen. We don't know why. The why we don't know. I can explain to you how. So when I think that humanity was always wrong, in my humble opinion, to explain science with religion and religion with science. They don't mix, and they can just walk hand by hand together. So the Big Bang cannot tell me why did it happen. It's not the mission. The Big Bang theory starts when matter existed after the explosion, and it is after the Planck's time.
I definitely think that, like, it's just like, why did that coffee cup fall over? I think there's a multitude of factors that led behind it. We don't know why it fell over, but we know how it fell over. We know that it fell a certain
Absolutely.
way. That's what you're trying to explain.
Exactly.
And if
absolutely, and we are not saying, we are not lying, neither being hypocrite as physicists, astrophysicists, mathematicians. We don't know.
Yeah, you're trying to find a critical, like, example or something. Like, if someone has a match and lights a match, like, you know, you're burning that match. You saw it happen. You saw everything that went into that, but you don't know the process of how everything formed together. It could be a multitude of factors, whether it was just random particles through space that combined it in together, whether it was a meteor, whether it was this blank, 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 blank. There's so much of it. There's so much that you can't pinpoint it to an exact thing. So I feel like that has to be a frustrating thing for a scientist to try and grasp, that it's just, there's too many factors.
No, this is not frustrating. This is really the excitement to be a researcher, and it's not merited. Just let me explain to you what is the Big Bang, okay? Just for the to erase the confusion. The Big Bang, I want you to imagine emptiness, not even space. When the Big Bang happened, the universe as it is started to exist. It is not a piece of sand that started to explode, to do an explosion in the space. No, the space and the matter started to expand. Before that, nothing existed. So imagine that you have a cement hole, full hole, 3D cement, full, you know, it's a box. like 40-meter cube box full of cement, and you are doing a hole of air, of emptiness, and you are opening it. So this is how the Big Bang started to create the matter, the light, and the time. Before that, nothing existed. So we cannot say that asteroid, meteorite, or anything existed before that, because at the beginning, nothing, and it is because of fluctuation of the emptiness, quantum emptiness, we started to expand, be cold, and then the light was created and the matter. Sorry.
This is, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a lot of information, but at the same time, it's so fascinating because when we start talking about the Big Bang, like, where people relate to this to being a God thing, I think it's on the factor of everything lined it up so perfectly. The way our planets are aligned, the way we are, like, it's the fourth planet from the sun, correct? Third planet?
Yes.
Or third or fourth?
So, no, it's the third. It's Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. It's the third.
So it's the third planet from the sun. That literally, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, and it brings productivity to make sustainable life. It makes this a habitable place for our whole entire species.
Habitable zone,
and not only our species, but other species as well, plant life, animal life, everything. And to think, like, I know a lot of people are so obsessed with space travel about going to a new place, but like in the movie The Martian, for instance, like when Matt Damon has to go to Mars and try and be able to create life, and it's so difficult because it's a dusty planet, because nothing can grow there, and all the elements are so different, harsh, and we're always looking for it's that Goldilocks planet, something that is so similar to Earth that can sustain our life as well. And that's our fascination. I know we've narrowed it down to a couple of them, but it seems like nothing is just like the original. And when it comes to the Earth, this is when I tell people that we need to do a better responsibility as people to care more for it, because we only get one of these things. Yeah, we can go find one that's similar, but it's never going to have that originality to it.
Well, yeah, continue. Sorry.
Well, I just think it's so fascinating because with space, like, I mean, you could sit here and give me hours and hours and hours and hours, and I can sit there and keep asking you questions, but we're not even going to scratch the surface. Or you're not even going to like be able to get a little tiny gasp of that, because there's so much out there that we haven't understood, and so much out there that there's left to explain.
And this is what is fantastic, because if I have an explanation for everything, I'll be God. I'm tending to be God, and this is our mission. Well, I'm Christian, sorry, but this is what Jesus Christ told us, that our mission is to be perfect as God. So yeah, until I be God, I no. Let me get back to astrophysics. Well, for Matt Damon, I wanted to tell Hollywood, to give an advice to Hollywood, really, because Hollywood paid a lot of money to always save Matt Damon in every movie since Saving Private Ryan.
Every movie. It's like, we just can't lose that guy ever.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for bringing the subject of extraterrestrial life and exoplanet, because really it's a very sexy subject now, and it's my scientifically sexy.
It seems like that's the one question like everybody wants to find out. Like, everybody, you hear these things about people trying to go into Area 51. I'm like, if someone would just let us know if there's something out there. I always was like, you can't close your mind off to anything like that, because something Ronald Reagan said in a presidential speech, he was like, do I think that we're the only ones in this universe? But I'd rather have the research to make sure that, if there is something out there, that we are prepared for it. So it kind of hinted to a lot of people that they were on the cusp of something. But when it comes to the amount of, first of all, how we don't even understand, coming from a microorganism or whatever, and then evolving into whatever you want to believe in evolution, if you want to believe that we were just here. I actually have a weird theory I want to throw at you that someone threw in my head. And being an open-minded person, I don't ever disregard this. I don't disregard really anybody's opinions or anybody's thoughts. The theory that people came from Mars. Now, this was supposed to be that, like, I know there was like the meteor. I don't know if you can probably help with this, but the meteor that hit Earth and kind of when we were all Pangea at one point, and it broke off and made all these continental kind of barriers or shifts where we all kind of broke off. And that's why it seems like if you take every country, you can kind of fit them together a little bit. When that happened, they believe that another meteor actually hit Mars, and those particles floated from Mars, and that's what we came from, the little dust particles from Mars. I don't know if you can shed any light. Does that sound reasonable, or does that sound like a false hope?
Okay, so here I have my paper, and thanks God I am on my desk because you are giving me a lot to talk about. So let me define to you what is the habitable zone, what was discovered, and what is science, and let me talk a little bit about a conspiracy theory, okay? So the habitable zone, when we started to discover extraterrestrial planets, you know that this year I was so happy and blessed that we have the Physics Nobel Prize. It was for the exoplanets discovery and for the cosmology, and it was the first time that the Nobel Physics Prize was given for something that is experimental. You know, for exoplanet, it's not like theory, mathematical, you know. And this is really very important. Why? Because science now is really believing, between brackets, because I don't put belief to science, you know. So that extraterrestrial planets around other stars really exist. And until now, if you go to nasa.gov, website for extraterrestrial planets, you can find that we have 4,099 extraterrestrial planets found. And we have like around 300 Earth-like planets. So what are we doing? Since the Homo sapiens sapiens, look up at the sky, he wanted to know if he is alone. And what you said earlier, my dear Robbie, you said better keep our Earth and to protect it if we are the only living being, but we don't know. And when you know that we have 200 billion of stars in the galaxy, our galaxy, and we have several hundred billions of galaxy in the universe, and when you know that like half of the stars has 1 to 10 planets around it, so I let you to do the calculation. So the probability to have a planet that can host life in the habitable zone like us is not zero. So to think that we are alone, I think that it is really egocentric. This is one. Second, what is the habitable zone? Means that a star that is in the sky, it can be in our galaxy, the Milky Way, or other galaxy, will have a planet, and this planet has to be a rocky planet like Mars, like Earth, like Mercury, and like Venus. And the distance between the sun and the star and this Earth, new Earth, extraterrestrial planet, is very good enough that to keep the pressure, to have liquid water, and the good temperature, right? To have the atmosphere and stuff. So we are searching for that. So is it impossible to find this? I don't think so, because impossible is not a word that we use in science. What we are discovering now is that life didn't just came from Mars, because when we observe the water molecule, the latest discovery, and I have a friend from James Webb Space Telescope, because I'm in the European Consortium of the new monster that will fly. The launch is in 21st of October 2020, sorry. I hope it's 20. And they discovered the water in some extraterrestrial planets, and when in between the interstellar medium, means that the medium between the stars, we discovered the building blocks of life, means that we have the organic molecule. So now you might think that maybe life is just common. I'm not stating that it is 100% the truth, but what you need to make life, sponge, we call it sponge, sulfur, phosphor, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, and hydrogen. And what if you are finding those elements in a big molecule formation outside of the Earth, outside of Mars, in comets, between the stars. So what you need is that something will hit the Earth, or something will hit Mars, Jupiter, Titan, or whatever, and enough time, millions of years, for this big molecule to transform into life.
And enough time for it to
I
happen as well.
Yeah, I hope that I was clear.
Yeah, I mean, it's like teaching the astrophysics to a fourth grader, but I'm trying to keep along. I'm really trying to.
Sorry.
No, it's perfect. I mean, this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, obviously, you know.
No, you can do it. Yes, you
Look,
can.
it's difficult for me to try and navigate the back of a cereal box, let alone the stars. So I'm trying to keep up. But when it comes to, I feel like there's so many moving parts. Literally, there are so many moving parts when it comes to space. There are so many questions I have. I mean, a million miles a minute, my mind is thinking, or I'm already want to know a little bit more about black holes. I have so much I want. I mean, the
Go ahead.
amount of information that your brain has soaked up is more than I could probably experience in 50 lifetimes. I'm telling you, it's crazy. I mean, bravo to you. Seriously. I mean, this is like, I'm so fascinated right now too. Like, I'm so glad that you accepted my invite onto the podcast. I'm so happy.
I loved how you do it. I was blessed, and I really loved it, and I was really felt humbled that you asked. I wanted to answer you for the Area 51.
Yes.
Can I? Okay. So, well, I know that my colleague astrophysicists worldwide will kill me for that, but I will say it. I'm a free woman, and I'm a free-minded
Do what
person.
you want, girl.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Robbie. Well, we don't know if they exist. I mean, like aliens, talking, walking, smart, intelligence alien, okay? And when we say that we're searching for extraterrestrial life as scientists, we don't search for that kind of aliens, neither the green man, neither the gray man, neither the, I will say the word, can I say the word, the lizard?
Yeah, the reptilians.
Yeah, the reptilian, neither those, okay? We search for biosignature, like methane or something that is related, or organic molecule, you know, but I'm not talking politics, neither Area 51. But if I am to extrapolate my physics and my energy, so the energy is related to the wavelength. You know what is wavelength? I'm talking to you, so my voice has a
certain frequency,
pitch,
a certain thing that my brain is
inverse. Yes. So hello, Ruby. Hello, Ruby. Okay. So those are different wavelengths. So imagine that there are some species that they are like they are developed 0.2% more than us. They are created 1 billion years before us, and they have the DNA developed like 1% more than us. Imagine that they are smarter than us, and they can just understand before we speak, and they can just play with their energy so they can disappear.
Oh.
Imagine. So the UV light, you don't see it. The infrared light, you don't see it, but it can touch you. The gamma light, you don't see it, it can kill you. The X-ray light, you don't see it, but it can hurt you.
Yeah, you can't see radiation, and it can still affect.
No, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of where sometimes like my brain can't hold in like math or anything like that is because we had a crack in our microwave, and I used to stand like with my head right next to it, kind of watching the stuff. I feel like some of that radiation.
No, it will not kill you. No,
some of that radiation might have affected me a little bit.
Remind me to give you an experience, a small experiment to the radio wave, and imagine, what if they can play with the matter and the wave? What if? So, and they don't need to talk.
Now, with this, have you ever seen Bob Lazar's documentary about the Area 51
Yes.
thing? Now,
yes.
Okay, can you, because apparently he came out later and said that it's not true or any of this type of stuff, and a bunch of people are calling him a liar. But it was found out in December of 2017 that gravity wavelengths, there are two forms of it, A and B. that people were thinking in the wrong way for so long now. We thought it was only one thing with gravity, and it turns out it was something completely new. I mean, a lot with scientific research, it seems like 20 years later, 10 years later, we find new evidence that totally erases the beginning stuff we have. And I think that's just because of how complex and how we're trying to give an exact answer on a lot of things. And it seems like based on our technology as well, we come to a different conclusion later, finding out that, oh, we were wrong, but now it's this way.
Absolutely.
I think that
I love your mind, man.
Well, I think that's a lot of people don't understand. Like my buddy likes to go around saying he's a scientist because he only believes in logical answers and all these types of things. But I try and rationalize with them. It's because when it comes to where a lot of people discredit science, or a lot of people go, no, it's religious or whatever, that's okay. But when it comes to understanding, as people, we're developing our minds every single day. They're expanding out, much like me having a podcast with you. I'm learning so much information right now. My brain, my education right now is only expanding. You can only go upwards the more you age and the more information that you take in. Now, as people in the human race, we are still moving about. I mean, we're just learning how to walk. I know it seems like, oh, with all this type of stuff and all this stuff, but there's so much vast information out there that we're not even close to discovering it all and getting even close to whatever we're like a 0.000001 out of 100% basically. And that seems so minuscule compared to all that we've done. And that's only because that there's all of this stuff that is out there that we keep improving and doing every single day. Like there's so much new things coming that we don't even know yet. We're not even thinking of yet.
Exactly. You are like, are you sure that you failed your math and your science or whatever you said?
Terribly. I mean,
no, but you're really good, you know?
I feel like,
no, seriously.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. I mean, I'm trying to, there's so much.
Let me tell you why. Robbie, what you're saying is really the essence of the research and science development. You know, I noted everything you said. Well, 80% of the thing you said, to not forget anything for our people that they are hearing us. You talked about the horoscope earlier, okay? And the horoscope used to be 12. What are the horoscope? The horoscope are an extension. If you put a line, a direct line, those are in the plane of the virtual plane in the rotation of the sun. So imagine that the sun is rotating, and those are in the virtual plane of the path of the sun, okay? So people like 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, they thought that they are 12. Why? Because the detectors, the technology were not present enough to see in infrared that time. And when we developed the infrared, we knew now that there is 13 sign, which is Ophiuchus. So we don't have 12, we have 13. So everything said about horoscope is wrong.
Yeah, well, we defined it down to 12 just on the basis of how many months there are in a year. I thought throughout history, like in like the 5th century and all these types of things, BCE, there was a magnitude of them. There was so many more than just 12. They were going down to even defining it to be some symbols as the lion, some not just the Leo or whatever, but some symbols as like the hunter, these types of things that
Orion.
Yeah,
Orion.
Orion's belt.
Yeah. Yeah, but Orion, no, we have 88 constellations. Those are not the horoscope, Ruby. So the horoscope or the zodiac this is why I defined them, that they are really in the plane of the virtual path of the sun. The constellations, Orion the Hunter, I don't know, what are they called? The Corona, whatever, are 88, the total constellation. But the horoscope as are defined, they are divided 12 because for the convenience, and they are not equal. Some of them, the sun and the earth need 3 months to pass them, the others 2 months, others bigger than the constellations are. For example, the Scorpion is bigger than the Libra. But even though they divided it 3 months, because they didn't show Ophiuchus, serpent, snake, serpentaire.
Huh.
Yeah,
Oh,
because it's infrared.
well, it's weird because like it seems like there's weird cutoffs. Like my brother's born in December, so his birthday is the 20th, and then I know that being a Sagittarius is till the 26th, and then I'm a Capricorn. I'm born on December 31st. So,
Yeah, maybe you're not all of those.
well, it's weird because I always relate to like I'm a half goat, half mermaid. Like that's the whole like
Oh
that was
yeah.
always my big thing to throw in somebody's face. But like when it goes down to people looking up at their horoscopes and getting their daily readings and things, like how in belief of this are you? Like reading, being able just on kind of like the stars in a way, aligning with someone's day is going to go.
0.
Zero?
Negative. Yeah, negative. Icy, Iceland.
Yeah.
Groenland.
Because I hear so many people, like I can tell by your astral sign that you're going to go into wealth or something. And I'm like, I'm still waiting on that check or whatever from the government. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it happen, but I try and be open-minded because like if you truly want to go fantasy and mystical on it too, it is something fun to kind of chase down. But when it comes to the logical sense of things, I feel like the most benefit that we've ever pulled from the stars was the way we used to navigate them throughout back in the day. I found that so fascinating that when you start relating humankind to the new iPhone came out, it's a big accomplishment. Well, what about back in the day when we were using these things to travel? Like we didn't know how long a journey was going to take, but we were basing it on our travelation to the stars.
God, I think that we need like 5 hours podcast. Listen, Robbie,
That's what I'm saying.
I want to say to tell you something. There's the to be really open, and I want to listen to everybody, no judgment, just to embrace, and I think that the first and only goal that a person can have on this earth is love unconditionally, and this is the only thing that can solve and save the earth and mankind. So this is having said, I wanted to tell you that for example, Aristarchus was a scientist like a few years after Jesus Christ, a few hundred years or before Jesus Christ, sorry. And he calculated the radius of the earth with nothing, not even radar, not even GPS. It is just with geometry and the the shadow of the light on the sun. This is how he calculated it. And we don't need that iPhone or iPad or Galaxy or Samsung or whatever Android to be really up to date and to do science. This is first. And second thing you talked about the gravitational waves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when Einstein talked about to confirm that when we miss the detectors, we can miss a lot of science. And the science is about we are really having heritage. We are really having the science of people that studied before us, and we continue their studies. Everyone put a building block, a small building block, and small piece, small piece, small piece, and this is how we do a big tower. And maybe we can die during this building, but we are nothing. We are just a small dot in the sky, and we are nothing and everything. This is the paradox. So when Einstein discovered that a big heavy mass of something very massive will curve the space and time, and he said if we have two black holes of two neutron star or two neutron star very heavy stars that will eat each other, will collide together, boom, they will have a wave of gravity. And he said it's really impossible. It's infrequent. What are the odds? And we discovered it like 2 years ago with the LIDO and Louaizeh, American and European detectors. They discovered the extension and the difference in the gravitational wave distortion of the space-time because of the two neutron star collision predicted by Einstein. like 50 years ago, 60 years ago.
And what happened exactly with this process of the two neutron stars colliding?
So imagine that you are on a waterbed. Have you ever been on a waterbed?
Yes.
Anyway, okay. So you take a bowling ball, you put it in the center, and you take marble. You just rotate it around it, you give it an initial speed, and it will rotate. At the end, it will collapse inside the curve of the bowling ball on the waterbed, right?
Yes, because the gravity's bringing it downwards.
Yes, yes. So this is what happened when we have a neutron star. A neutron star is the final phase of a big star, kind of big star, right? And it's very dense, it's very massive. So already one neutron star will curve the space like a bowling ball on the surface of the waterbed. And another neutron star will curve the space, if we have a bowling ball, on another waterbed. Imagine that those two neutron stars will eat each other, will collide. So what will happen to the surface of those waterbeds? They will do waves, as if you are sending two big rocks into the surface of the water in the ocean, and they are doing waves. The two waves will interfere, right?
And then thus creating...
This will create a wave motion that will arrive to us. And we measured this wave of space-time.
Oh, man.
Yes, man.
Immediately I'm picturing the rock hitting the water and seeing the ripple of the waves and taking two rocks and putting them maybe like 10 feet apart and doing that and seeing the waves come together and the collision.
Big rocks.
And we're just getting the feedback from that.
Yeah.
And that's how we process that information.
Yeah.
Dang, that's so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
See, I started chasing down a little bit of like how light refracts and all these types of things, mostly because my buddy's a fan of I actually did a podcast with him. He's a fan of astrophysics. He's from Bulgaria. His name's Vilislav. But
hello, Slav.
But it's pretty funny because like there's this new thing going on now. A lot of people talk about this color that's blacker than black. It's called Vanna black. Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah, but I will not talk about it. I'm studying it now.
Well, it usually just messes. Apparently, like for my understanding, it's just that it flattens all 3D features, so it looks like one of those cartoon things, like the little black hole they throw up on the wall, and you can jump through it.
Yeah,
I find that like it's crazy to see the types of things that we're still discovering today, which is coming up like this, and a lot of people are starting to find interest in something like astrophysics or something, even doing a tiny bit of research about this color and then finding out a little bit more information on that and taking them down a rabbit hole, which might lead them into learning a little bit more about colors, gravity, different types of descriptive features of how objects and all these things kind of process together to make an object or something. Because I feel like a lot that what's going on, especially like in my country, there's not a lot of people that are focused on being astrophysicists. I mean, it seems like the primary thing, like if you look up anything like with astrophysics or something, a lot of the stuff comes from a foreign country like Europe. And I think it's because the priorities and also the place has changed. When you look at, like, for example, we talked about earlier with lights and the type of stars and all these things that are pollution that are basically disguising the stars so we cannot see them anymore. That also takes an effect when you go to a different place as well, such as Alaska with the northern lights. You can see those things there because pollution isn't as bad as somewhere in a capital city in America, such as New York. You won't be able to see a star in the sky. You'll be able to see maybe a planet or so.
Of course. Yeah.
And I feel like it's like I said before, we're missing out a key feature. But when it comes to why Europe and all these types of things, when it comes to astrophysics and studying the stars or anything about really this type of group of science in general, it's in another country because here our pollution is extremely more, I guess, worse than somewhere more open. I think that's also a reason why when there's a recent thing with Hawaii and the observatory that they built there in Hawaii that was apparently placed on religious grounds or something where a lot of people were getting affected. And like you said before, it's because we have to go so far up in height just to be able to pierce through that layer. pierce through that thing for us to be able to get more information from it because of the kind of negative impact that we're having on, our place where we live, our home.
Absolutely.
But, well, go ahead.
Yeah, I was, we need everybody on this earth. I mean that USA and Europe and other countries like India, Japan, and really are doing great job for astronomy. And for example, that the solar panels started for astrophysics, for satellites, and we used them on Earth after. And a lot of technology, maybe we'll talk about it later on in other podcasts, they are directly used, developed for space, and they used after for life on Earth. So, and it's not quite correct that we are like there's a discrepancy, and it's not quite correct that in the country like Europe or in the third world country or India, actually the pollution is with the globalization now is everywhere, light pollution and other pollution. So this is why we're sending satellites around the Earth, like for James Webb Space Telescope, it will be 1,500,000 kilometers far from the Earth. It's really to get out of the light and the light pollution of everything to observe. So I think that we have some smart and interesting people all over the places. I would love to hope that. Yeah, like you, look at you. I don't know you 2 days ago. I didn't know of your existence.
I wouldn't say I'm smart or intellectual. I'm just open to understanding for sure.
And openness is everything, my friend.
And I mean, I appreciate you coming out and doing the podcast. You didn't have to. And I do want to ask you one question though.
Yeah, tell me.
When it comes to the name of the podcast, Out of the Blank, what did you get from that?
Because I don't know, maybe it was so personal. I always think out of the box, and I love things that they are not so ethical, so orthodox, and I loved it. So and there's blank is
space,
is blank. Yeah, but blank is not exciting. It's blank.
Yeah, I always say out of the blank because it can go anywhere.
Yeah, so it's like blank with one spot, red one. This is how I imagine it. There's emotion, there's something that's going out of the blank that and I said, oh God, yeah, he is interesting.
Cyrine, you're an amazing woman. Thank you so much for doing my podcast. Like I have to basically take a break because I've received so much information, but we're definitely going to do another podcast for sure another day. But this was amazing. The fact that I was able to talk to you. And I mean, thank you so much for dumbing it down as much as you possibly can, just for me to be able to soak in a lot of this information. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Do you have anything that you want to promote, any sites, anything? I know you have a blog. Do you want to tell people about it so they can find your awesome work?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I have a YouTube channel. I do, with my research and my teaching load in Notre Dame University in Louaizeh, Beirut, I do research in Paris also with the James Webb Space Telescope, and I do also a lot of outreach. So I have a YouTube channel in Arabic for the Arab and sometimes in English, Dr. Cyrine Nehme Astro channel. And I have, of course, an Instagram, dr.cyrine, Nehme. And I have Facebook, Dr. C Astro page, DRCY. Actually, those are the first letters of my first name, and CY, it's just to CY, And and I have a blog where I write poems, and I try to show some of my paintings because I love art.
Oh, trust me. In the next podcast we do, we're talking about poetry because I'm an avid poet person.
Oh, yeah.
I don't tell a lot of people, but I write poetry. So
I write it in French. I try to translate it in English.
Thank you so much.
And I love to sing, just to tell you that. I love to sing.
Oh, trust me, we're going to have a lot more to talk about. I come from a music
Yeah.
family, so I got a lot when it goes there. But
Wow.
thank you so much, Cyrine, for doing the podcast. It was awesome talking to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and doing this.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank, and stay tuned for our next episode.